Good afternoon. It's the Madpro here from Data Horde, joined today by our friend Calm Evening to discuss Gacha games. It is the season after all, seeing as we're recording on Christmas Eve. To begin with, what actually is a Gacha game evening? How do you think you'd describe it to a complete stranger to the genre?
Hello, everyone. My name is Calm Evening, and I actually also go by Gosk and some other names. I don't really use that much anymore. So, a gotcha game is essentially, it's actually usually Japanese, and to a Western audience, the closest equivalent to a gotcha game would be Counter-Strike 2. Like, seriously. It uses a system called Gashapon, which where you basically purchase roles, and they're usually in batches and stuff, and like it's pseudo gambling and stuff. And the Western equivalent of Gashapon would be loot boxes, essentially.
Counter Strike 2, that's actually a pretty funny comparison. Then why do you think whenever you go online and see kind of reviews of gacha games, Counter Strike and sort of loot box games are kept out of the discussion? There seems to be a good separation between kind of, as you put it, gachapon games and then loot box games.
Well, you see, the games using the terminology loot box are usually like Western, and like there really is a separation there, and like it is kind of funny. But both are sort of talked about similarly. Like some people despise them, some people really like them, and it's pretty similar. And I just thought it was really funny to call it basically Japanese Counter Strike 2.
Oh yeah, right. Japanese Counter Strike 2. I think that also kind of raises a slight difference, right? So loot box games tend to be original. When I think about Fortnite, when I think about Counter Strike, it's sort of like its own universe, as opposed to most gacha games, which tend to be licensed, right? So it comes from some other
Yes.
existing franchise.
Yeah. And there's also it's that's why it's not really a direct comparison, it's just the closest equivalent to what most people would think, I guess. Gotcha games, you're right, they're licensed, and they also have a variety in gameplay. Like when you think of loot box games, you think of um, uh, those games that are like Counter Strike. You just think of the same five games. Like you think of like football, you think of shooter games, hero shooters or whatever. But when it comes to gotcha games, there's quite a lot of variety, and they're really referring to like the gashapon model, not really the gameplay itself. It doesn't really evoke the gameplay when you say gotcha game. For example, Honkai Star Rail is like it's turn based. There are some other games where it's match three. um I'm not really sure there's a third person shooter for like Japan or whatever. So like it
Pal World.
really it's Pal World is American though, right?
I think it
But
was. Anyway, yeah, that's its own discussion.
anyway.
So yeah, a lot more diverse in terms of genre. I think that's a good way to cover the basics. Then the idea, I suppose, is whether you call it a loot box game or a gacha game, one of the core aspects is you spend some kind of in-game currency, real-world currency even, to try your luck to get some kind of rare drop, whether it's a character or item, right?
Yes, whether it's like customization or like power ups, usually it's power ups, and yeah, that all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Uh, I made a joke when we were starting by saying we are recording on Christmas Eve, and then, it's very much the season of the year people like to play gacha games. At least from the ones I used to play, they would always have some kind of Christmas event, either introducing a character who has a Christmas skin or just doing discounts on how many draws you can do in a day. Why do you
Yeah,
think that might be? Any guesses?
I honestly, I'm guessing it because a huge part of the revenue earned from Gacha games I read don't come from the general audience. It comes from like the same few people. So basically, they're called whales, and they would
Wales.
spend no, seriously, and they would spend uh, an insane amount of money on Gacha games, and it's pretty much the only source of revenue that Gacha games earn. And like it's the same over in the Western sphere, where like a bunch of like degenerate gamblers would like spend money on Counter-Strike or whatever, and those are genuinely
Regrettably.
just the only source of revenue that these types of games have. Just the few same five people.
Regrettably. Yeah. And I guess they're more inclined to do their spending near the Christmas or New Year time of the year, which is fair. But it actually raises kind of an interesting point of there is like a big seasonality aspect to gacha games, where you can only earn some things at a certain time of the year, and from the archiving point, uh, there is a certain point where old content can become inaccessible, as far as I can recall, right? Like you might not be able to earn things in the first seasons again down the line.
Well, about that. So the FOMO is actually what got me to all of this Gacha game archiving. Kind of funny, but like, so when they tease all of that FOMO stuff of like seasonal costumes and stuff, and you think it's gonna go away forever. No, not really. Unless the game's going to shut down, the files will genuinely just always be there. So there's genuinely, for me at least, there's no FOMO in that because I can always just download the file. I don't care if I own it in the game or whatever. But unfortunately, a lot of people do care about owning it in the game. So the tactics do work. And speaking of, yeah, one of the gacha games I do follow, Magio Etc., is having a Christmas event like right now, and that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be invested in gacha games maybe some 8, 9 years ago. I'm used to it, but I've more or less uninstalled all of them by now. But I do know
Ah,
at least, yeah, I'll get some kind of notification saying if you join right now, you're gonna get a ton of rewards, and it's also Christmas. So
yeah,
yeah,
I guess I can get a
ownership.
ton of them.
Yeah. I guess that's an interesting point, right? So in Magic,
Yeah.
you kind of try to gain new cards. Hearthstone, well, that's not exactly a gotcha game, but in terms of the sort of, you own something in this game if you spend resources. Uh, Let me see. Some gotcha games that come to my mind are kind of, yeah, the Honkai, Genshin, maybe also, was it the Fate game that had like the characters from the Fate series?
Yes, that's actually the most popular one. Its name
Really?
eludes me.
Oops. Okay, we'll just call it the Fate Gotcha game until I can remember what it was. Uh, so yeah, I mean, players can kind of encounter opponents that have maybe the character or skin that they want, but to be able to, and I use this term very liberally, own something, you need to kind of draw it from the gotcha system. Is that correct? Or do you think there's also ways to cheat around it?
Well, that is yeah. There's like sometimes you get to earn stuff for free in the game. Like when you're starting the game, you get like very good luck. I think that's like what do you call it? It's not luck, it's scripted. And that's one of the few times you get any actual choices. Like if you want something, you get into the game, then like the opening draw will be like straight up scripted. So if you want something, you can keep redrawing. And sometimes you can just earn stuff for free, but like it's very doesn't happen very often. Other than drawing, there's a few ways of doing it. Yeah, the ones I outlined, but really, you are forced to draw eventually.
And then you're kind of allowed to use whatever you earn until I guess you forget the password to your account, right?
Um, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Or the game shuts down. That's probably the more concerning scenario for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, how do people respond when they find out you've played this game for over a decade, but the gacha isn't profitable as it used to be, or maybe the franchise is waning in popularity? Do you get any kind of I don't know, compensation where you can redeem credits in some other game, or is it just thank you for playing and not much else?
Uh, Speaking of that, funny
Yeah.
enough, something similar happened to my friend the other day. We were
Oh,
talking, and funny enough, he was like, "Oh, I used to play this Gacha game," and then he Google searches it, and it ended like a month ago, and he freaked out on me, and he said like, "Oh my God, I played that game for like 7 years, and like it just shut down, and all I have are these screenshots." It's kind of funny, and that thing you mentioned about like the credits that has to my knowledge, I only know it's only happened like once, and it's Magia Record, and it's because there was a sequel game planned, and it was Magia Exedra, which, by the way, to anyone watching, sucks total doo doo fart. It's terrible.
yeah, sorry to hear that it's not that fun. Yeah, no one ever said that gacha games were meant to be good, but
There are actually some good ones. I play one on my phone at least. So
well, that's nice to hear. I mean, uh, at least that people should be invested in the games because they're actually good and not just the fear of missing out on the latest character item or
yeah.
aura. I don't
I
know.
actually have fun. I actually have fun playing the Gacha game on my phone. So yeah.
But at least, I mean, what we can kind of identify here is there is sort of a built-in assumption that gacha games aren't forever, both because the things you get during the seasons change, and also the games can just suddenly shut down, which seems to be a problem for many online games, but particularly common for gacha, from what I've heard at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, it's um you don't really even hear it a lot because like it happens so much. Like I think there was like I think there was like an article about like Magia Records shutting down, but like that game, I think it's because that game was the one where even I assumed I thought it would go on forever, and then all of a sudden they shut it down.
uh,
But for other games, you don't even get an article; you just get like a tweet on Twitter or something. It's that common.
yeah, let's just tweet the game away. Uh, then at least from the player's point of view, I understand why the game matters. You've spent a lot of time on it. You've maybe actually spent some real world currency on it. There's a lot of reasons why you would care about the game continuing to operate. But why do you think others should be invested? Suppose I'm not the biggest Fate fan, but if the Fate Gacha game were to shut down, why is this a tragedy to the outsider?
You know, regardless of what people think of gacha or gambling or free to play, you know what? It's undeniably like important to gaming history, you know, especially if the game's been around like as long as that Fate game, which I just searched its Fate Grand Order,
Grand Order,
so
that's
we
the
can
one.
stop calling it that now. Yeah. So as long it doesn't even matter if it if it existed long. It's more so like it's it's a it's a piece in like gaming history already, like just the it being out, no matter how long it's up. And um that's kind of funny. It's kind of a bit hard for me to put into words because I myself, I have zero attachment to most of the gacha games I save. It's just how I am. But for other people, I think I really do think they should care a little bit more about like history and stuff, because like this stuff, like we're gonna look back on this like at some point, and we're gonna be like trying to see, oh, what is this even, and then there's like almost nothing on it because no one preserved it, like because everyone hated it. So regardless of whether you like something or not, I think there should be like it should be like preserved at the very least, stuff like gacha games.
Now, I can't remember if it would exactly qualify as a gacha game, but I know that a lot of people are frustrated with the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. I think that's the one. So that was a mobile game for the Kingdom Hearts series, which is already split across 8 different consoles, I think. And that game shut down years ago, but it had a lot of kind of story development in terms of you need to kind of follow what's happening that game to understand what's happening in the newer games. So I've heard some people complain that if it creates continuity issues in kind of the series because it's a franchise game, right? That's also something that demands preservation because someone's actually going to need to remember who is this character, why did they show up before? Hmm.
Oh, certainly. Like I haven't I haven't thought to mention that, but yes, that actually is a very important reason because like some of these gotcha games, they're like licensed, right? So they'll set up something in the gotcha game, and then like at some point they'll just shut it down, and the only record of it that exists is like these fandom wikis just
Yeah.
cataloging it, and that's it. And like it's frustrating, you know? It's frustrating. Like sometimes you just there was a chance to like preserve it, but like either people didn't know or like they settle for video. It's just me who's frustrated. Some most people, I guess I heard like they'll be like angry and stuff, but like they'll settle for like videos or whatever. I really just want the files myself.
On that note, yeah, let's actually talk about what can be preserved from gacha games. So I guess let's start from the sort of surface level preservation, right? Um, Wikis are probably the easiest thing to do. People can try and remember the details if they kept notes or screenshots to themselves and try and sort of fill out a wiki page about this is something that was in the game. Video gameplay, I think that's kind of something that requires a little more effort, but at least gives people an idea of what it was like to play the game. When we get to the level of files, I mean, what exactly can we preserve from the files? Can we preserve dialogue trees, or is it just, pictures or screenshots of the characters?
Well, so we can pretty much preserve like almost everything. I think like dialogue, I guess you could it would take quite a lot of effort to decompile, especially if the files are encrypted, which is the case with a lot of these gotcha games and online games in general.
Yeah.
Like those files are often encrypted and stuff, but if you put work into it while the game is still alive, I should emphasize that while the game is still alive, if you put enough work into decrypting, you're gonna get those like dialogue trees eventually. You can pretty much get almost everything from a gotcha game while it's still up, except for the API, which
Oh
is
yeah.
a massive, massive problem. So once a gotcha game shuts down, you're pretty much just left with like 15 gigabytes of files that you can't play because you can't really preserve the API because programming stuff, it's all precompiled, it's all like it's all like PHP or whatever. So yeah, unless like the devs are very generous and don't care about copyright, and give you the API, which I don't think has ever happened for a single gotcha game ever. So good luck with that. So pretty much just the only things that can be preserved from gotcha games are almost everything, which is great, but it's usually not playable. Usually.
I think you also alluded to something back there when you said kind of the API, right? So I know
Yep.
this is a general thing for web preservation. I don't think it's kind of limited to gacha games. But sometimes you'll just have files that are cached on local devices. So players who used to play the game, they might have the files with the characters they unlocked. And then even if the game shuts down, it might be possible to sort of reverse engineer the files to upload those specific cache files because you don't have to make a API request since the device has kind of taken a snapshot, so to speak, of the assets. Uh, on the other hand, though, I at least know from messaging you from time to time, when a game is shutting down, archivists will try to target all the endpoints of the API so they can kind of grab any resources that they can, right?
Well, well, that's just me. I most people I've seen, they settle for those downloads on the phone instead of APIs. So there's like usually don't if it's a gotcha game that's shut down, like uh if we're talking like a game that I don't know, like for example, you come up to me with a game that's shut down and like I didn't know about it beforehand. Good luck with those endpoints. I wouldn't know because no one has noted them down.
Hmm.
So, and I should also mention like retrieving those files from the phone, um, like that has been downloaded. Sometimes it's very difficult because like, if it sometimes if you're lucky, a game like running Unity or something, it'll store all of the files in a place where you can copy them.
Yeah.
But like increasingly, games are starting to put their data in places that you can't reach them. Like you'll need root on Android for some of these apps now. So that's why I mostly work on emulator nowadays because like it's just useless now. I don't want to root my main phone because like I heard if you're not good enough, you can like brick your phone, and I'm not really that confident in myself. So I work on emulator, and don't even get me started on iOS. That was the thing I was working on before this interview. Um, I. I have a jailbroken iPad and stuff, so like cool, but like if you're a normal person and you play the Gacha game on your iPhone, good luck retrieving that, especially if you use your iPhone, because like involved when it comes to jailbreaking your iPhone or iPad. So like it in general, just okay, so in summary, sometimes it's most of the time now it's becoming increasingly difficult to even get files from your phone, especially for gacha games. So yeah, and actually I do very much hate that, yeah.
At the same time, I guess it's something we alluded to but didn't see it out loud, is gotcha games are kind of by and large developed for like the smartphone user, not so much console. Well, I guess Genshin and Honkai, they have PC ports, right? I'm not imagining that, I hope.
The isn't Genshin on like Switch, or is that just a meme or something? But yeah, uh there's this one gotcha game I can think of that has like a standalone port on Nintendo Switch, and that's actually very very fortunate, you know, that it's on the Switch because it shut down like 6 months ago.
Yet another victim.
Yeah, another victim.
But yeah, I mean, it's probably a series of compounding issues. The file systems on smartphones have, for one thing, been poorly documented. For another thing, the iOS ecosystem, Apple likes keeping things difficult to access. And then third, the
Oh
developers
yeah.
uh, sometimes deliberately encrypt their assets for reasons beyond me, but maybe it's just, licensing makes it so that it's, undesirable that these should be available on the internet outside of the game, perhaps?
Actually, um, to butt in, there actually is a reason for encryption, and
Yeah?
two reasons I can think of right now. The first one is cheating because they don't just encrypt the assets; they like obfuscate the game's code and stuff, and that's to make it hard for cheaters to patch the game. Which fair, I guess. But the second reason is also to prevent. I can think of at least is to prevent like leaks because sometimes these game developers for some reason will add in future updates already before announcing it, and obviously um, the encryption doesn't an obstacle to these people. They'll leak it immediately, and that's obviously another motive for encrypting. And the third one would obviously be they don't want people uploading obviously the game's data, so they make it hard to access because of copyright reasons.
Yeah. All things to consider, and not much of a way to sidestep them. Then to adapt, I guess. Uh, okay. Then I guess that more or less outlines the sort of gotcha game preservation process. I mean, unless you have any other specific stories you'd like to share.
Well, um, yeah, it. I should just add, at this point in time, at the very least at this present moment, it really doesn't even, unless you have a rooted phone or something, it doesn't really even focus on the phone. Even though they're all phone apps, it doesn't really even focus on you. You don't even have to use the phone to preserve this. You just need like a lot of disk space, man. You just need a lot of disk space. Like you need space for the emulator. You need to download a couple of apps. I actually have a guide for this in Archive Team. I just want to plug that in real quick. Android application slash HTTPS on Archive Team. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure everyone who's interested would know how to set up an emulator like this. But yeah, besides that, it really is just you can just use an emulator for this, and then after that, you can check some network packets and stuff, and then you do a bunch of URL guessing. Sometimes, uh, if you're unlucky, you have to do URL guessing. Sometimes there's a full list of the game's assets, which you have to use like regex on, which is the easiest part. And then from there, you can just mass submit it to a Wayback Machine, which, by the way, off topic, has gotten a bit harder because like their Google Sheets is total crap right now. Their Google Sheets processing used to be so good, but right now it's just like been failing and stuff. But yeah, that's just another inconvenience. It's actually, yeah, this whole thing, it really is just going out of your way to like preserve the game, I guess. There's quite a lot of roadblocks. But once you overcome it, I guess at least the game is preserved, which is good, I guess.
Okay, I will for sure make sure we have that guide in the podcast notes. Way back, I'm actually glad you brought it up. That's probably a topic worth another episode in the future, but at least from what I know, between sort of like the early infancy of mobile gaming to around 2016, 2018 ish, there's a lot of kind of snapshots that have ended up on Wayback. Maybe not so much for gotcha games, but especially these sort of I forgot what it was called, Docomo, like the Docomo mobile
Oh,
games. Yeah,
yeah, the Mobage, right?
Mobage and so on.
Yes. Speaking of Mobage, that was actually, I actually moved away from Gacha games for a bit because like I was kind of busy, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get into archiving something else briefly, and I got into Mobage, and like, dude, those are kind of, those are. It's kind of crazy that they still exist, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been like preserving those, but sadly, I really don't have a guide for that, so I can't plug that in. I've been doing it manually, like using Fiddler and stuff.
Yeah, but that's okay. I guess the only thing I wanted to note to myself is it felt like it was easier for certain things to make their way to the Wayback Machine maybe about 10 years ago. There's a variety of reasons why it's no longer the case. Yeah, if we do ever do a how does the Wayback Machine work projects, I want to kind of introduce people to the concepts of, common crawl, sort of the AI hysteria, meaning that a lot of these platforms are now trying to rate limit scraping as much as possible or charge fees for it. So yeah, I mean, there's also
That would
the
be like,
whole situation
sorry.
of, how Archive Team and Alexa used to provide data to Wayback, but they don't do as much anymore. Yeah, okay. That's a rabbit hole that, yeah, we'll cover
Hmm.
another time. You were saying,
Yeah, yeah. Wait. That would actually yes, on that topic I just wanted to mention, it was kind of funny. While doing my Mobage captures, it was kind of funny. I have no idea how, but like way back in Archive Team, they have like some of these Mobage URLs already on the Wayback Machine, and I was just thinking, how in the world did they get those like before? Like, I've never, dude. The people I've talked to in Archive Team don't even know what a Mobage game is, so I have no idea how they managed to get a hold of some of these captures. Their captures can be so random sometimes. Anyway, back to
yeah,
the top.
oh yeah, I guess to close off, uh, sort of when it was working as intended, one of the big data sources was this old platform called Alexa Rank. It used to be very common that you'd go on Wikipedia, the Wikipedia page for, I don't know, Facebook or Google or whatever, and then you would get like a number called Alexa Rank that told you it's the 12th or 14th most popular website in a given country. Uh, that platform, which is sort of connected to Amazon but also not, it's even more confusing because the name Alexa is something different today. Uh, was I believe it was started by Tim Pojar. I might be wrong, but it's sort of like its own separate thing that was crawling a lot of websites. But when it was crawling those websites, it would sort of forward the information to the Wayback Machine. But then
Oh,
Alexa Rank fell out of use for several reasons, and that's one of the reasons why, yeah, doesn't work as good as it used to. I'll just probably
ah,
link something about that from the Data Horde blog because I really want to get the message out there. People are just assuming that these things break on their own. No, it's broken for some very identifiable reasons.
thanks for giving context to that. I've seen the name Alexa on a lot of the captures I've been checking, especially from the like 2010s and stuff, and I was just wondering what Alexa is. So, thanks for giving brief context on that.
All right. Yeah. So that's a future episode for me to plan out. I wonder who I should invite to co-host that. But moving on, who are some archivists to know in the area of maybe mobile preservation in general? I mean, you can talk about gotcha games, but you seem to be the resident expert. Do you have any other frequent people you work together with?
Um, Sadly, I'm the only one that I know of for like gotcha games. For gotcha games in particular, it's a community effort,
Yeah.
and a community effort that springs up when the game is announced to be shutting down. I have never seen people in a community for a gotcha game try to preserve it before it shuts down. I haven't seen that. I'm probably one of the few out there. I like to believe there are other people, but I don't know who they are. But yeah, in terms of gotcha games, sadly, I'm the only one I know of who really just goes out there and tries to get gotcha games. But I usually also target them before shutting down. So like, I'm also kind of guilty of this.
Yeah.
But I at the very least get get the files before it shuts down instead of like screenshots or whatever. So, in terms of mobile gaming in general, the one name I can think of right now is the folks over at Coffee Break and wait, let me. Uh, there was this iPhone OS Obscura, I guess, and Ketai World, all very different in what they do. iPhone OS Obscura, I'm not even sure. Are they that big? I'm not really sure. I'm just in their server. Cat Eye World, they do work on those Docom. They do work on like phones in general, not even the games, just the phones in general.
Yeah.
Coffee Break, they also just focus on the phones in general. Like Coffee Break does a lot of things, but like they have this specific section in their server for like this kind of stuff, but like uh yeah, it's just those three that I know of in summary.
And yeah, I guess you alluded to the reasons as to why it's maybe a bit more controversial because when the game is still running, it might be viewed as piracy if people are trying to like leak the next update in advance. So you don't really gain legitimacy until people see that the game is being discontinued. The developers have lost interest, made to lose interest. Um, so yeah, but good. Those are all names to kind of note in the mobile preservation scene. Do I have any off the top of my mind that I'd also like to add on to that list? Oh, well, I mean, you yourself, you're active on Lost Media Wiki, which isn't so much maybe mobile gaming specific, but I guess that's one of the
um
places people sometimes bring these things up.
I've actually I do have two things to add for Lost Media Wiki. I I don't really see them like doing a lot of work in general for like phone stuff, which is kind of sad. But like they're more active in like searching for like movies or whatever, like just in general, like not software. I don't really do them. I see them searching for software a lot. What was that? There was that one Walter White Breaking Bad thing they were searching for a few years ago. That was software. Yeah. And the second thing is the thing that one of the few things that did kickstart this drive inside me, and I should mention him. It's Nick Robinson. He did the Hatsune Miku Dominoes thing, and the whole process of him just finding someone, and then like getting someone to dump the app for him, and this is extremely relevant because I literally just dumped an app like 50 minutes ago on my iPad. And yeah, he is one of the people who got me into this. Other than the Lost Media Wiki, also got me into this, and uh, honorable mention to the Rent a Girlfriend gotcha. The concept, like the concept to me of that game was like it was so ridiculous. Like this somewhat controversial anime manga just having this gotcha game, and the gotcha game actually just looks good, but like the gameplay is like match 3, but it's 3D. And I was like, I just wanted to save all of it. And dude, there is, I should also, this should also be mentioned, there's a learning curve when you get into this. There's a very high learning curve. I had to learn so many things just to save that singular gotcha game, and it did work. I saved it in time, which is good. Um, yeah, there's just a fair warning if you want to get into this. I guess there's a learning curve to this, but like, well, there was. Uh, I guess I've lowered it a bit because like I made a guide, but still, there's somewhat of a learning curve for saving gotcha games, which is another sad reason it's a bit difficult, you know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, then thank you for the great discussion. And then I guess just as a last or almost last question, uh, do you see a future for the gachapon model, or at some point are we just going to all move on because these games tend to be shutting down? They're too reliant on a few customers, kind of whales, right? I mean, will we keep seeing gachapon games in 2030, 2040, or I mean, like when I think about Genshin and sort of kind of newer gacha games, they tend to focus more on some other mechanic where gacha gets more and more moved into the side. I mean, what do you think? Do these games? I mean, will we keep seeing them, or at some point will we see the last gacha game made?
I personally I hope it gets phased out at some point. I personally don't really like the model myself, but um I think at some point in the future, I'm not sure how long, you're right, it might get phased out because like these games, it's more like nowadays I see like they'll just launch it for a quick buck, they'll shut it down after like 2 years. It really is just for a quick buck for some of these companies, which is really unfortunate.
Just modern
But as
shovelware,
of
yeah.
right, as of present day, I I take this with a grain of salt. I don't really follow the industry a lot. I just like come in to save games and stuff.
It's okay.
Um, take it with a grain of salt. I don't really see a change in the industry, I guess, but I guess in the near future they might phase it out and like stuff, but like somewhat tangential to this is the stop killing games movement,
Oh yeah.
which if that takes off, yeah, that's uh it's like a 50-50 for gotcha games if that takes off because like stop killing games basically, when I heard of it, I fell in love with it immediately. I love that cause because it pretty much outlines exactly how to preserve a gotcha game, and it means that I don't have to do it myself. I don't have to go through all of the hard work. Now the devs are like legally mandated to
Responsible.
do it. If yeah, if it's possible that they might be legally mandated to do it now, which it would make me very happy because like, you know, preservation and stuff. But it for me, if that thing takes off, it could be a 50-50. Like devs could like the companies could like think like it's not even sustainable anymore, like we're gonna have to preserve this afterwards and stuff, and we don't want to do that, so they're just gonna stop it, or it's either that or they agree to the new rules. That is if the movement is successful. I hope the movement is successful. Actually, it's a very good movement. And another thing I do hope is games movement also spreads to the eastern side, because as of right now, if you say stop killing games, you're probably gonna think of Ubisoft, Western company,
Yeah.
EA, Western company. You're not gonna think of I'm not gonna name any Japanese companies, but just think of a Japanese company making a gacha game. You're not gonna think of them. So like at some point, I hope it spreads to the eastern side of the world and people demand these gacha games stop killing their games, because it really is. Their name is very descriptive. It also applies to gacha games. Please stop killing their games. Like, I don't. I personally don't like gacha games and stuff, but like, um, just every time they kill a gacha game, I just think like, oh, they're doing it again. It disappoints me, I guess.
Stop killing games. Ah, that reminds me. I mean, I guess another sort of initiative which doesn't have one name but several names is there seems to be like a lot of protest against loot boxes in games, and it's definitely much heavier on the sort of anti loot box side rather than the anti gotcha side of, we shouldn't let kids get gateway drugged into gambling.
Mm.
So, especially in Europe, a lot of countries are trying to limit or ban outright loot box games. If that trickles down, then I also think that's another threat to the gotcha model, that if players are too reliant on luck rather than skill to sort of unlock things, it might just be that, yeah, the current generation of gotcha games are perhaps the last, and then what comes after might be something more similar to. Can't get it off the top of my head, but as you mentioned, some games are kind of scripted, so they have to give you a certain reward instead of you kind of gambling blindly. Uh, so it might be that these franchises continue to make licensed games. It might not be as profitable, and it might also stop for that reason. But it might be difficult to sort of have gotcha as a business model, and also with stop killing games, right? There's a much heavier responsibility that you should keep the game in a functional state, uh, one way or another. So, yeah, let's see where it goes, and that's also definitely something to talk about in the future episodes, because it also covers the PC gaming world, which is a whole other ecosystem. Uh, when you name drop EA and Ubisoft, I mean they do mobile gaming too, but MMOs and the such are also kind of under the sort of that framework. Uh, okay,